No one wants a single mom with baggage. That's what my sister muttered at her own wedding, like she wanted the words to cut, and they did. But what her fiancé did next? It left the entire room in stunned silence. It started like most days, at my little desk in our modest apartment on Harbor Lane in Rockport, Maine. The sunlight filtered through worn blinds, casting golden stripes across my piles of receipts and tax forms. The click of my calculator was the only rhythm I knew that kept me steady. I had exactly 20 minutes before I had to pick up my son, Kai, from soccer. This desk, crowded with coffee cups, notes, and a lopsided picture of Kai with his goofy grin, was my sanctuary. I'd built it out of grit, love, and a relentless will to keep going. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. I was 32, juggling a million things alone, and still finding moments of peace in the chaos. The front door burst open. Kai barreled in, cheeks red from running, hair damp and messy. "Mom, you almost done?" he called, leaning into the doorway, his hazel eyes dancing. "Almost there," I said, sipping from a chipped mug. "Homework." He waved a wrinkled sheet of math problems. "Yeah, but I need help with history. Something about Paul Revere or midnight or whatever." I laughed softly. Kai, 10 years old, was my whole world. Not just because he was smart or creative, but because his heart was big enough to heal mine on days it hurt. After we lost my father to a sudden stroke 5 years ago, it had been just us, me and Kai, making it work. My phone buzzed on the desk. I already knew it was my mother, Geraldine. "Dinner's still on for tomorrow," she said sharply. "And Eva's bringing her fiancé. You'll be there, yes?" It wasn't a question. "Yeah, we'll come," I replied, already bracing. She sighed dramatically. "Fine. Just make sure Kai behaves. This is Eva's moment, not yours." That was my sister, Eva. The golden child. The beauty queen. "So what does her fiancé do?" asked casually. "Gavin Monroe. Financial consultant. Legacy family. Princeton." "Just perfect," Geraldine gushed. I tuned her out. Her world revolved around appearances. Labels. Perfection. In her eyes, I was the one with budget shoes and a messy life. When the call ended, I sat quietly, listening to Kai humming in the other room, probably drawing aliens or dragons. My heart tightened. He felt the distance between us and the rest of the family, but he never let it break him. The next evening, we walked up the steps of Geraldine's grand old house, an antique monster of a place on Willow Street. I straightened Kai's jacket and looked him in the eye. "Ready, bud?" He nodded. "I'm good, Mom." That quiet strength in his eyes broke me a little. Geraldine opened the door, all pearls and polished disdain. "Layla, Kai. Late as usual." "We're on time," I said, stepping in. The smell of roast lamb and some expensive candle greeted us. Laughter floated from the sitting room, Eva's laugh, sharp and practiced. "Come in," Geraldine called over her shoulder. "Eva and Gavin are waiting." Eva was perched on a velvet love seat, wine in hand, dress shimmering like money. She rose with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Layla, you made it," she said sweetly, barely glancing at Kai. And Kai. Her fiancé stood next to her. Gavin was tall, with carefully styled dark hair and a suit that probably cost more than my rent. "This is Gavin," Eva announced proudly. "Layla," he said, extending a hand. "Great to finally meet you." His hazel eyes locked on mine, familiar and kind. "Nice to meet you too," I said, returning the handshake. He turned to Kai. "Hey there. What grade are you in?" "Fifth," Kai muttered, a little shy but curious. "Ah, fifth grade. That was the year I made a solar system out of foam balls for the science fair. Mars rolled under the gym bleachers during the presentation." I laughed. "I'm doing a volcano. Might explode on the teacher." "Even better," Gavin grinned. And blinked. No one in this house ever really talked to Kai. Not like he mattered. Eva cleared her throat. Layla, please tell me that's not what you're wearing to the wedding. Her gaze scanned my thrift store blouse and slacks with amusement. I forced a smile. I'll figure it out. Geraldine chimed in, her tone cool. We didn't include you in the wedding party, dear. You're just so busy with your situation. My fingernails dug into my palm. I nodded and said nothing. Gavin glanced at me, his jaw clenched. I wasn't sure why, but it looked like he noticed the way I held myself together. The rest of dinner dragged, filled with crystal clinks, Eva's stories about florists, and more wedding talk than I could stomach. Under the table, Kai's hand brushed mine. We were okay. The weeks leading up to Eva's wedding became a blur of spreadsheets, checklists, and very little sleep. I wasn't just a guest. I was the one holding the whole thing together. While Eva floated between gown fittings and brunches, and Geraldine treated anything logistical as beneath her, I quietly managed everything. I confirmed caterers, repaired the mess when the florist sent peonies instead of roses, reorganized the seating chart twice. I didn't complain. I'd built a career in accounting by staying calm in chaos. And now I was doing it for my son, for my peace, and maybe, just maybe, for a sliver of respect for my family. One night, I was holed up in Geraldine's study, surrounded by RSVP cards, color-coded post-its, and a laptop full of typos in the wedding program. The room smelled faintly of dried roses and expensive polish. I was fixing a misspelled guest name when Gavin appeared in the doorway, holding 2 steaming mugs. Coffee, he offered. Thanks, I said, blinking in surprise. He sat down across from me, eyeing the chaos. You're basically planning the whole wedding. Gave a small shrug. Someone has to. He scanned the color-coded notes. This is impressive, Layla. Seriously. A blush crept up my neck. It's just what I do. Then he looked at me, really looked. Do you ever get that feeling you've met someone before? My pen froze. Maybe. Why? Did you know someone named Emma? My heart stopped. Emma. The sweet, fearless girl I had met 12 years ago while volunteering at a cancer ward. She'd been barely more than a teenager, laughing even when she was weak. Her little brother always sat nearby, sketching rockets and stars. Wait, Emma was your sister? I whispered. Gavin nodded, a sad smile playing at his lips. You remember her? How could I forget? I said, voice trembling. She changed my life. I was 20, he said softly. I used to watch you read to her. You made her laugh on the worst days. You brought your son once, remember? He was tiny, drawing aliens on her get-well cards. Tears welled in my eyes. She called him her little explorer. The room fell into silence, thick with memory. She loved you, Gavin said. Said you felt like a big sister. Said you reminded her how to live, even while dying. My throat tightened. I never thought I'd cross paths with your family again. Neither did I, he admitted. But now that I have. His voice trailed off. His eyes met mine, gentle but intense. I looked away, unsure of the strange hope blooming in my chest. A few days before the wedding, my phone rang. Gavin's name lit up the screen. Layla, I need to ask you something, he said, his voice tight. I want you to be my maid of honor. What? Gavin. Eva didn't even ask me to be a bridesmaid. I know. I asked her to let me choose. And I chose you. Because family matters. You matter. I sat still, breath caught. No one had ever said that to me. Not in a way that felt real. I don't want to cause trouble, I said softly. I'll deal with that, he said. Just say yes. I hesitated, then said, okay. The next morning Geraldine called. Her voice was arctic. Layla, what were you thinking? Eva's beside herself. You just had to make it about you. I didn't ask, I said calmly. Gavin did. Of course he did, she sneered. You always play the martyr. Don't ruin your sister's big day. I looked out the window. Kai was outside, kicking his soccer ball against the fence. His laughter rising like sunshine. If Eva doesn't want me in the wedding, she can say it herself. I'll step down. You can't, Geraldine snapped. It's already been announced. Don't embarrass us further. I hung up, hands shaking, but I breathed through it. Kai's laughter was my compass. I was doing this for him, for me, and maybe for a version of myself that still believed I deserved to be seen. That night I couldn't sleep. Geraldine's words echoed. Eva's silence screamed louder. But then I remembered Gavin's voice. The warmth, the conviction. You matter. Kai's steady breathing drifted from the next room, grounding me. Tomorrow we'd walk into the fire. The church was breathtaking. St. Mark's Chapel in Rockport glowed with gold-trimmed candles and arrangements of soft white flowers. The sunlight poured in through stained glass, casting quiet rainbows over rows of polished pews. Eva's big day had arrived, and every detail screamed perfection. I arrived early with Kai. My dress was sky blue, simple but graceful, chosen to avoid attention. Kai held my hand tightly in his small, nervous grip. You look really pretty, Mom, he whispered. I smiled and kissed the top of his head. Thank you, love. In the bridal suite, chaos reigned. Eva stood in a sea of silk and lace, her bridesmaids fluttering around her like moths. When I entered, she gave me a glance that barely lasted a second. Geraldine was planted in the corner like a judge, arms crossed, gaze sharp. That dress, she said under her breath, lips curled. Very you. I nodded, unmoved. Years of being called plain and invisible had hardened me. Then the ceremony began. I stood behind Eva, holding her bouquet, watching the moment unfold with calm focus. Not for her but for myself. In the front row, Kai beamed at me, pride radiating from his little body. Gavin stood at the altar, and when our eyes met, he offered a quiet, steady nod. I returned it with a slight smile. The reception was held at the city's opera hall, transformed into an upscale fairy tale with draped linens, sparkling lights, and champagne towers. Eva stood on the stage in her glittering gown and lifted the microphone. I just want to thank my maid of honor, my sister Layla, she began. People clapped politely. But then her voice shifted. A smugness crept in. Layla, our strong, independent single mom. So courageous, right? Raising a child all alone after. Well, after all that mess. The room began to hush. Few people chuckled, unsure. And still looking for love, folks. Anyone in the crowd looking to adopt. Laughter rippled, uncomfortable but real. My stomach twisted. Kai reached for my hand. I could feel it tremble. Then Geraldine stood, her voice chiming in, sugar-coated with venom. Layla's always been the quiet one. Dependable. Dull maybe. But even second-hand goods can find a home. Especially with a child in tow. My vision blurred. My heart thudded like a warning bell. I rose from my chair, barely able to breathe. But before I could take a step, a loud scrape echoed across the room. Gavin stood. His face was pale, his jaw clenched tight. The entire room silenced in an instant. He walked up to Eva, took the microphone from her hand, and turned to face the guests. I need to say something, he said. His voice was heavy, angry. Eva let out a strained laugh. Gavin, what are you? He raised a hand. Stop. This was supposed to be a wedding. But weddings should be about truth and love. He turned to me. Layla and I didn't meet last month. We met years ago. When my sister Emma was in the hospital, dying. You could hear people gasp. Layla was a volunteer. She came every week. Read to Emma. Sang to her. She brought light in when everything else was dark. He glanced at Kai. And she brought her little boy. He was just a toddler. He drew pictures of rocket ships and suns for Emma, and made her laugh until the end. Kai's grip on my hand tightened. Gavin looked back at the room. I never forgot. And tonight I saw cruelty instead of kindness. I heard humiliation instead of love. And I'm done. Eva's voice cracked. Gavin, don't do this. I'm calling off this wedding, he said flatly. The room erupted in shocked whispers. A glass hit the floor and shattered. Geraldine stood, color drained from her face. "You can't mean this." "I do," Gavin said. "You'll get the invoice." He walked past Eva, past Geraldine, right over to us. He knelt in front of Kai. "Thank you," he said softly, "for being the light you are." Then he looked at me and extended his hand. "Come with me." I stood up, took his hand, and Kai followed. We walked out, past the murmurs, the judgment, the people who had only ever seen one version of us. We didn't look back. That night we found ourselves at a quiet seaside restaurant. The deck overlooked dark waves and the sky shimmered with stars. We didn't talk for a long time. The silence was enough. Kai sat between us, quietly drawing with the crayons the waitress brought. Gavin finally spoke. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything they said. And for what I let happen." "You didn't make them cruel," I replied. "But you stopped them. That matters." He sighed, looking down at his untouched meal. "I should probably explain how I even ended up with Eva." I didn't ask, but I nodded. After Emma died, I was lost. Eva was bright, loud. She distracted me. I thought it was healing, but it was just noise. Understood. She never cared about Emma. Never even asked about her, he continued. And the way she talked about you. It was like she hated that you existed. His phone buzzed. Eva's name lit up the screen. He turned it off without looking. "She won't stop," I said. "She won't have a choice," he said. "My lawyer will handle it." Kai looked up from his drawing, a lighthouse under the stars. He smiled, small and sleepy. "Hey, Kai," Gavin said gently, leaning in. "Remember those drawings you made for that girl in the hospital? The ones with stars and planets?" Kai blinked. "The ones for the girl with the scarf. I think her name was Emma." Gavin smiled. "Yeah, that was my sister. She kept every single one of your pictures by her bed. You made her laugh when nothing else could." Kai's eyes lit up. "She said I was funny." "You were more than that," Gavin said. "You were her little hero." Outside, the tide rolled in, steady and calm. The quiet between us felt safe, like home. The next morning, we drove out to the cemetery at Ridgeview Hill, where evergreen trees swayed gently under the breeze, and the ocean could be seen in the distance. Emma's grave was simple, just her name and the word loved. Gavin knelt, laying down a bunch of white daisies. Her favorite. I stood back, holding Kai's hand. Kai reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, smooth stone he had painted, a yellow sun surrounded by stars. "I made this for her," he whispered. He knelt beside Gavin and placed the stone carefully next to the flowers. "Thanks for liking my drawings," he said softly. Gavin's shoulders shook. I gently rested my hand on his arm. "She'd be smiling right now," I told him. "She'd love it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. We stood there, the three of us, in the stillness, hearts open, eyes full. I closed mine and whispered, "Thank you, Emma, for leading us back to each other." A warm gust of wind passed through the trees, and I felt her there, light, free, full of laughter. As we walked back to the car, Gavin reached for my hand. "Let him." And in that moment, the weight I'd been carrying for years started to fall away. Kai ran ahead, arms out like airplane wings, humming under his breath. For the first time in so long, I felt a flicker of something I'd forgotten how to feel. Oh. A year later, I stood in front of a little red brick building on Main Street. A sign above the door read, "Harbolite Accounting and Advisory. Layla Greer, CPA. Name. My business. My future." Gavin had been the one to push me toward it. "People need to know who's behind the magic," he'd said with a grin. Inside, the walls were painted soft gray. A cozy couch sat near the door. Kai's drawings were pinned behind my desk. Rockets, planets, lighthouses. Work was steady. My name was gaining a reputation. Kai was now 11, confident and thriving. Captain of his soccer team. Full of energy and kindness. And Gavin, he was our anchor. He worked hard, but he never missed a game or a bedtime story. We weren't married, not yet. But we were a family in every sense that mattered. Geraldine had mostly disappeared. Eva's social standing took a nosedive after the wedding fallout. She'd lost work. Friends drifted away. Geraldine left a few voicemails, her apologies wrapped in backhanded comments. I never called back. My heart had no more room for poison. That Christmas Eve, our living room glowed with soft lights and warmth. Kai had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, dreaming of the skateboard he'd circled in every catalog. Gavin and I sat in front of the fireplace, cocoa in hand. The quiet was perfect. Then Gavin shifted, pulling a small velvet box from his sweater pocket. I've been waiting for the right moment, he said. My breath caught. What's that? He opened it, revealing a delicate emerald ring, vintage, with tiny golden leaves woven into the band. It was Emma's, he said. Before she passed, she told me, give this to someone who reminds you what love really means. He looked into my eyes. That's you, Layla. My vision blurred. My hands shook. Michael, will you marry me? He asked, voice steady. Let's build the life we both deserve. I looked over at Kai, curled on the couch. Then at the ring. Kevin. At this life that had grown out of pain, but bloomed with love. We're already a family, I whispered, smiling through the tears. But yes, let's make it official. Outside, snow began to fall, wrapping us in light. Thank you for being part of this journey. If Layla's story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in second chances and quiet strength. We tell stories that honor resilience, real love, and the everyday heroes among us. Join our community for more powerful tales that stick with you. Turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. Until then, keep going. Keep believing. Your story isn't over yet.